As in war, so in life. And our biggest enemy is ourselves. Our fear, our conditioning, our laziness, our desires. Oh, you don't agree? Okay, then why don't you do everything that you say you're going to do? Why do you always let fear hold you back? Why do you find yourself overwhelmed in the heat of events when you know you'd like to handle this situation more calmly? It's us against us. It always has been, and it always will be, because most of our lives are spent up here. Therefore, if we want to make progress, we have to declare war on our enemies, whether that be an idea, person, a cause, ourselves. Because the war I'm talking about doesn't involve you dressing up in overalls and charging into a battlefield to meet the enemy, although most of us would like that, let's not lie. The wars which confront us are psychological, social, and we meet with them daily. If we don't awaken to this reality that life is war, we will fall into the slippery slope of comfort, which will drain your energy and life force until whoosh, and death will meet you laughing. If you haven't guessed already, what we're going to be dissecting and learning about today is the first 4 chapters from the 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene. There's 4 points we're going to delve into so you can develop this formidable warrior-like mentality. And the ideal we're striving for today is you. You are the ideal. You will awaken to this reality that life is war, and because of this you will develop an indomitable mindset, keen attentive eye on the present moment, a calm mind during the chaos of events, and a sense of urgency with your actions. Your mind is the starting point of all war and all strategy. A mind that is easily overwhelmed by emotion, that is rooted in the past instead of the present, that cannot see the world with clarity and urgency, will create strategies that will always miss the mark. Point number 1, declare war on your enemies, the polarity strategy. Let me tell you a little story. About 7 months ago, I came across an idea called the soft life. It is something I utterly detest. Because my belief is that living a soft life, which I guess these people would define as not challenging yourself in any way, staying quite comfortably in the realm of things that you already know, I detest it because when life finds you wanting and you've already been living in a very soft frame of mind, then you're going to be found out. And not only are you going to damage your life because obviously you've been living soft over the last year and anything that is going to challenge you, you're not going to be ready for, but you're also going to damage the lives of people that you care about. And I read the first chapter of this book when I came across that idea, and it was perfect timing. I declared war on the soft life, and I started to put myself through more challenging situations. And people might be listening to this and think, oh my god, that's such a bad thing to do to yourself. My life experience expanded when I allowed myself to lean into fear, live towards my edge, and lean into challenge. It took Joe Frazier, the boxer, to bring out the best in Muhammad Ali. Samurai warriors wouldn't be deemed as great if they hadn't travelled around Japan and fought other just as great samurai warriors. Man exists only insofar as he is opposed. Even if you're defeated by an enemy will bring out the best in you. Hence, competition is so important, because it's better to lose to a worthy opponent than never actually step up to the challenge in the first place. So think of yourself as always about to go into battle. That's the frame of mind that you want. Who are you fighting against? I actually believe if you go through life and no one has opposed you, then you've never really stood up for anything. It is our enemies that give us a framework to actually judge ourselves by, our skills, our qualities, our character. And the image that is given in this chapter is the earth, as the ground beneath your feet provides a solid frame for you to walk on and trample on. You absorb its resistance and are propelled forward in life. Without an enemy to walk on and to trample on, you lose all sense of bearings and where to focus your mind. There's an interesting study with rats that was conducted where scientists put rats in a maze where at the end of the maze they would be rewarded with some food. They had to navigate the maze and find the food. What they found is when they put the rats in the maze, they were quite motivated to pursue the reward. However, they also conducted another experiment where they put the rats in the maze. At the end of the maze, obviously they still had the food, but the scientists also sprayed cat odour. So the idea is that the rats had something to pursue, but also something to run away from. Now, they were a lot more motivated to navigate the maze, especially when they had the scent of cat odour at their backs. The takeaway from it is you need something to run away from. Declaring war can be on an idea, as I mentioned in the intro. Let's say you hate the idea of the soft life, or you hate the way a certain person lives their life. In my group of friends, we've developed alter egos for ourselves that we actively want to avoid. So for example, there was a period of my life about 2 to 3 years ago where I was just philosophical Lewis. One of the best qualities of our friends is they can point out our inadequacies and laugh about them. My friend Joe pointed this out. When I was just philosophical Lewis, I wasn't training, I was just on the intellectual path. I could tell you exactly what Seneca had said and when, I could tell you what all of the these philosophers had said, but I never really absorbed any of the wisdom myself because it was all borrowed. I wasn't developing strength, I wasn't training jiu-jitsu, I wasn't doing anything, I was just fascinated with reading. Now I've declared war on that state that I was in because it didn't bring any fruition in my life. I see it as a stage of stagnation, so me declaring war allows me to have the image of just philosophical Lewis in my mind, so I will never return to that state. Don't listen to people who say that the distinction between friend and enemy is primitive and passé. They are just disguising their fear of conflict behind a front of false warmth. They are trying to push you off course, to infect you with the vagueness that inflicts them. Once you feel clear and motivated, you will have space for true friendship and true compromise. Your enemy is the polar star that guides you. Given that direction, you can enter battle. Quick word of warning here, you don't want to create enemies in every single person that you meet, and you don't want to search for an enemy in everyone, but you probably want at least one or two enemies, whether it's an idea or a person in life. And if you suspect someone is an enemy, keep it to yourself. Don't blurt it out straight away, lest you expose an underbaked assumption. Just a quick one before we continue. Subscribing or liking this video gives me the necessary feedback in order to continue making videos just like this. So if you're enjoying this so far, I would appreciate either one of those, subscribing or liking. Let's get back to it. Number 2, don't fight the last war, the guerrilla war of mind strategy. The old Prussian generals came across a little bit of a problem when they ran into Napoleon. Bogged down with their dogma of war tactics and strategy, they found it hard to navigate against Napoleon because Napoleon, younger, more fresh, allowed himself to tap into the feeling of every single battle, and he wasn't dogged down by what his victories have taught him before. Instead, he brought this present awareness to every single battle and ended up beating the Prussians in the Battle of Judah. Another example was Miyamoto Musashi, the famous samurai warrior. In every single fight, he would delve into a different technique or a different tactic. Arriving late one time, arriving really early, arriving on a boat to which the other samurai warrior thought, what the hell was going on? Unsheathed his weapon, threw his sword cover in the ocean, to which Musashi said, why would a samurai warrior do that unless you know you're going to die? And then he defeated him. Musashi's opponents would all use flashy weapons, but Musashi would study each of his opponent's techniques before the fight and then adapt his techniques accordingly. Thus, one's victories in battle cannot be repeated. They take their form in response to inexhaustibly changing circumstances. After analysing a circumstance or an event that went badly in your life, you might think that more knowledge is what you needed. That's actually not true. What you need is more presence of mind to tap into the event that you're currently facing. More books, more theories, more templates will only make things worse. The greatest generals, the most creative strategists stand out not because they have more knowledge, but because they are able, when necessary, to drop their preconceived notions and focus intensely on the present moment. What does this mean in everyday life? The way you got that girl's number before might not work with the next girl. The marketing strategy that worked last year will probably not work this year. The latest video you uploaded on YouTube went really well. Okay, the next one, if you try to repeat it, probably won't work out as well. The image here is like a river. Keep it forever flowing. Mud, boulders, blockages in the way of the river are like ruminating thoughts about what you've done before. Keep the river flowing. The faster the river flows, the better you will be. How can you develop this strategy of mind? Simple. Number 1, re-examine all your cherished beliefs and principles. Education is much easier than re-education. You don't want to dog yourself down based on the knowledge that you've learned before. This was shown in the North African territory with the British and the Americans. The British were indoctrinated through tank warfare, which wasn't likened to the environment in which they were fighting in. The Americans came over and they were much more fluid to the environment, allowing them to fare much better than the British. Number 2, erase the memory of the last war. Success will make you lazy because you feel like you've given yourself the opportunity to celebrate and just perpetually repeat what you've done before. There was a North Vietnamese general who would always convince himself that his successes were failures, so he never allowed himself to get drunk on the last war. Number 3, keep the mind flowing. Just like a river, the faster it goes, the clearer you get. Number 4, absorb the spirit of the times. Age is just a number. If you're trying to figure out a new strategy to work in your marketing business or your YouTube channel, whatever, tap into the trends of the moment. Don't bemoan them, use them. Number 5, reverse course. Don't be afraid to delve into novelty and change your course if you need to. Think about sunk cost fallacy. The more effort you put into something, the more likely you are to convince yourself that you need to continue it. But it's a cognitive bias. It can trip us up. Spend 3 years in a relationship and you're thinking, oh, I can't quit now because that would be 3 years of my life wasted. It's irrelevant. You spend 20 quid on a ticket for a concert next Wednesday, but by Tuesday you don't want to go. Oh, I'll lose 20 quid. Irrelevant, the money's already gone. Apply no tactic rigidly. Do not let your mind settle into static positions, defending any particular place or idea, repeating the same lifeless maneuvers. Attack problems from new angles, adapting to the landscape and to what you're given. By staying in constant motion, you show your enemies no target to aim at. You exploit the chaos of the world instead of succumbing to it. Number 3, amidst the turmoil of events, do not lose your presence of mind. The counterbalance strategy. In the heat of battle, the mind tends to lose its balance. Too many things confront you at the same time, unexpected setbacks, doubts and criticisms from your own allies. There's a danger of responding emotionally with fear, depression, frustration. It is vital to keep your presence of mind, maintaining your mental powers whatever the circumstances. Again, the greatest enemy isn't another person, it's our own self-doubt and lack of confidence. The director, Alfred Hitchcock, was referred to as a nodding Buddha with an enigmatic smile on his face, because on set he would seem disinterested, bored almost. Did this mean that he didn't care and his movies went to ruin? Absolutely not. He had the presence of mind because he had already done the work that he needed to do. He practically had already edited the footage in the script writing, so whenever a producer was faffing around and running around chaotically trying to change the shot of an angle, Alfred Hitchcock would look up, show outward pleasantness, but then inside he wouldn't be fazed at all because he knew the direction of where the film was going. Presence of mind during chaos is the ability to detach from everything that is going around you and see it like you're on the top of a mountain looking down at everything going on, to see the bigger picture with clarity. What gives you that mental distance is preparation, mastering the details beforehand. Let people think your Buddha-like detachment comes from some mysterious source. The less they understand you, the better. Let's see how we can develop this presence of mind. Point number 1, expose yourself to conflict. Let me tell you about the fable of the fox and the lion. There was once a fox who had never before seen a lion, and then one day he encountered one of these fearsome beasts. The fox was so terrified on the first occasion that he thought he would die of fear, and he ran away. Then the fox met the lion again, and he was frightened, but not as much as the first time, but still he ran away. On the third occasion, the fox actually plucked up the courage to go up to the lion and start a conversation. So run to trouble and desensitize yourself to the thing that you fear by exposure. The General George S. Patton would actually sprint to the front lines during World War I to expose himself to the chaos of battle. Now this is quite extreme because of course charging at the Germans, he could have died at any point. He would imagine all of his ancestors who had been generals in war staring at him, so that would give him the necessary energy he needed to run to trouble and expose his mind to chaos, so that when times are easy, he already has that confidence to be able to deal with things if they change in an instant. Number 2, be self-reliant. Being reliant on other people makes you weaker and prone to frustration. Learn how to delegate, but with petty details, but for the main tasks that are important to you, do them yourself. Number 3, suffer fools gladly. There was a famous German author who would actually subject himself to annoying people so that he would be able to collect material for his novels. Think in that way when you're dealing with annoying people. Number 4, crowd out panic by focusing on simple tasks. I'm going to tell you a story about a Japanese tea maker. Lord Yamanouchi, an 18th century aristocrat in Japan, asked his tea master to travel with him once to Edo, which is now Tokyo. He wanted to show his fellow aristocratic friends the masters of his tea maker and how brilliantly he could prepare a pot of tea. The tea master himself was a peaceful man, a master at his craft, but didn't really know how to do much else besides making tea. However, on the travel, the tea master had to dress like a samurai because that was the custom when you're part of an aristocratic family. One day, while walking through the city, a samurai warrior actually challenged the tea master to a duel, to which the tea master proclaimed, No, I'm just dressed in these overalls because it's what my position requires. I'm not a samurai warrior, all I know is how to prepare tea. The samurai warrior looked at the tea master and ignored his excuses, and in fact, the tea maker had to take on the challenge, otherwise he would disgrace the family in which he served. So he accepted the battle, but he had one request, that it be postponed until the next day. So in a state of panic and absolute chaos, the tea master made his way to a local fencing class. If he was going to die, he wanted to learn how to die honourably. He met a fencing master and he listened to the tea maker's story about how he wanted to die honourably and the challenge that faced him the next day. But first, the fencing master said that he wanted some tea. A little confused, the tea master agreed and began to prepare his tea in the peaceful, calm manner which he was used to. The fencing master yelled, "There's no need for you to learn the art of death. The state of mind you're in right now is enough for you to face the samurai warrior. When you meet him tomorrow, lay out your coat and your sword calmly, just like you are doing now when you are preparing tea for me." The tea master, a little bit confused, agreed to do this the next day when he met the samurai warrior, and the next day he met the challenger and unfolded his coat calmly as instructed. And the other samurai warrior couldn't help but notice the calm manner of this tea master, and he thought, perhaps he's not just a tea maker after all. The samurai warrior apologised for his behaviour and challenging him to a duel, and ran off at the fear of this accomplished, perhaps samurai warrior sage. So the takeaway here is a focused mind has no time for anxiety. If you're scared about doing something, if you're about to give a speech, or if you're about to approach someone that you want to, or if you're about to perform in any way, focus your mind on something so small and so simple and so insignificant that you have to give all of your attention to it. Regain your mental balance and then return to the problem. Number 5, unintimidate yourself. If you're intimidated by someone, think this person has the same amount of fears, insecurities and skeletons in their closet as everyone else. Look at them as a child. Lastly, don't just develop your presence of mind in the midst of chaos, develop it throughout everyday life, because calm is contagious. The image here is the wind. The chaos of the wind could come from any angle, but a good sailor focuses his mind on the steadiness of his hand and the direction that he has in mind, come what may. Number 4, create a sense of urgency and desperation, the death ground strategy. This is my favourite one, so let's get into it. The world is ruled by necessity. People change their behaviour only if they have to. They will feel urgency only if their lives depend on it. Hernan Cortés, the Spanish conquistador, found himself in a bit of a sticky situation when he wanted to overthrow the Aztec Empire, but his men just wanted to return to the comforting shores of Cuba and their Spanish wives. The men were devoid of energy, disgruntled, but Cortés knew that if the Spanish could overthrow the empire of Tenochtitlan, it would be an incredible victory. So, what did he do? In order to prevent his men from wanting to return to Cuba, he got a group of men to go around to all of their ships and burn them. So they only had one ship left, and the men, if they wanted to, could either stay on the shores of Mexico and fight with Cortés, or return to the shores of Cuba and Spain. Most of them stayed, and 2 years later, Tenochtitlan was overthrown by the Spanish, an incredible victory. Too often we give ourselves plan Bs instead of just focusing fully on plan A. You may see this fall back as a blessing, but in fact it is a curse. It divides you because you think you have options. You never involve yourself deeply enough in one thing to do it thoroughly, and you never quite get what you want. Sometimes you need to run your ships aground, burn them, and leave yourself just one option: succeed or go down. Make the burning of your ships as real as possible. Get rid of your safety net. Sometimes you have to become a little desperate to get anywhere. The idea in this chapter is from Sun Tzu in The Art of War, where he coined this term the death ground strategy. What he realised is, if you back a warrior against a valley where he has nothing to focus his mind on but actually escaping the situation in which he's in, if you put a samurai warrior in a corner with 15 other warriors around him, you will get the best out of that warrior. So you have to ask yourself, what area of your life are you allowing yourself to just placidly float through because you have so many other options to fall back on? How much better could you be if you burnt your ships, figuratively speaking, and you allowed that to give you the urgency and energy you needed to fully focus on what you're doing? It's risky, I know, hence why your family probably won't want you to do so, but how much better could you be if you went fully in on this thing? Is it so terrible to be a timid man? No, it isn't if you're going to be immortal, but if you are going to die, there is no time for timidity, simply because timidity makes you cling to something that exists only in your thoughts. It soothes you while everything is at a lull, but then the awesome, mysterious world will open up its mouth for you, as it will open for every one of us, and then you will realise that your sure ways were not sure at all. Being timid prevents us from examining and exploiting our lots as men. Your days are numbered. Will you make them count? The greatest enemy we face in ourselves is our laziness and sloth. So sometimes you have to throw yourself in a situation where your back is up against the wall and you have to act. Because this is the thing, let's say you have a cushy, comfortable job now and a monthly paycheck. Let's say it goes tomorrow and you're let out of your job and you're unemployed for the next 3 months and you've got a family of 4 to feed. You will, by necessity, make it work, or you'll crumble under the intensity. Last 5 points, let's see how we can develop this urgency of mind. Number 1, stake everything on a single throw. Again, burn your ships, figuratively speaking. Number 2, act before you are ready. Number 3, enter new waters. Number 4, make it you against the world. Number 5, keep yourself restless and unsatisfied. Thank you for your time, thank you for your attention. Let's enter battle.